man who has really brought so much energy to the content creation world and is a huge YouTube star and is ready to talk about lifestyle emissions. So with that, I'm going to introduce my friend, Nasir Yassin.
Thank you, thank you. Hi, Jaya, how are you? So, Jaya just made a giant mistake by choosing me to moderate this session. Giant mistake, because I don't follow the script very well, and I scream a lot. So for the next 1 hour, there's going to be a lot of screaming, a lot of debating, a lot of disagreements, but a lot of education. I can't help it. I come from Israel, so we love disagreements. So, today we're going to talk about, first of all, we're going to get to the audience. This is going to be very interactive. But today we're going to talk about something that confused the hell out of me for the last 10 years. Lifestyle emissions, carbon footprint. Every time on Instagram I make a story about a plane flying business class, I get 10 comments. What's your carbon footprint? Why are you flying? Why are you doing this? Every time I replace a t-shirt, they say, why are you replacing your t-shirts? There is so much excitement about reducing our carbon footprints, but there is so much confusion. Every time I get these comments, I ignore them because I don't know what the hell my carbon footprint is. And I don't know how to reduce my lifestyle emissions. And should I even do it? Does it help at all? Is there any point in it? And so these are the questions that we're going to try to answer today. And we have some of the brightest minds in the world helping us answer these questions. And they're going to be right here on stage. But before we get to know them, I want to get to know you. So I want you to raise your hands and just scream one sentence telling us who you are and why are you here. Okay? Who wants to start? Go. Go. Stand up, scream.
David Wilcox, reach scale. I scale things.
You scale. Like you scale tech or like food products or you scale humans? What do you scale? What is a thing?
We build scale consortiums all over the world, scaling industries.
Exponential. I love it. Go. Stand up.
I'm Andrea Lerman. I'm the host of the Living Change Climate Leadership Podcast, and it's all about finding surprising validators and really amplifying them so that other leaders are inspired.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. In the back, stand up, scream.
I'm Ingrid. I build passive houses.
You build what?
Passive houses
What's a passive house?
use 90% less energy than a normal new built house.
Super cool.
The cities in the world use 40% of the energy we have.
Got it. Very cool. Okay, who is next? Come on. Stand up. Where are you from and what do you do?
My name's Johnny, and I'm a Nas Daily fanboy.
Thank you. I'm your fan too. And what do you do?
We do advertising on behalf of climate. We spend a lot of time convincing Americans that climate change is real, it's man-made, and we can do something about it.
Wow, super cool. Okay, this is a very targeted audience. Okay, stand up. Yes.
So I'm Yael. I'm from Israel.
Oops.
Professor for sustainability, and one of the things that I'm working on is personal carbon allowances, how to restrict emission from the individual level.
Amazing. A professor from Israel. Very cool. And let's do two more and then we start. Go, go, go. Stand up, scream.
I'm Sheila Moravati, the founder of habitsofwaste.org, a nonprofit organization to change our habits.
Very cool. And then last one, go. Make it count.
Zach O'Neill from Bank Green. We're decarbonizing the banking sector by encouraging consumers and businesses to switch their accounts to sustainable banks.
Amazing. Great. And the guy who scales things. Are you excited for today? Today we're going to scale your knowledge, okay? So, before we start the panel, let's do a little bit of education. I want to invite Solitaire Townsend, she's the co-founder of Futerra, to give us a really nice brief overview of lifestyle emissions. Please.
I got it. Thank you so much, Naz. Now, I was told it's hard to follow Naz. Following Naz when you've got PowerPoint slides, I think it's just like a really deeply unfair thing you have to do. Also, I'm one of the founders of Solutionist House, the three organizations, Google and Exponential Roadmap, and it is such a privilege to be able to open this. Now, Naz, you asked about what lifestyle emissions are, so let's actually take a look at what lifestyle emissions are. So Futerra has been working with these amazing scientists from BE Works. So BE Works are all behavioral economists, BE. And they are deep, deep, deep thinkers about why we do what we do, and the fact that most of the time we don't know why we do what we do. And that's how we manage to make interventions for change. And so Futerra is kind of bringing the communications, the engagement, the outreach to people, and BE Works are bringing the deep insight about what makes us tick. Now, we have worked together over a period of time. My little clicker just needs to go. We've been working together over a period of time, and then last year, bang, the IPCC report landed. Now, the IPCC report is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. For those who don't know, many of you do know, some of you might be part of it. And these are scientists from every country in the world, including countries currently at war with each other, who every 6 years agree what is the science of climate change. They've been doing this for decades, and last year, for the first time, they didn't just ask governments to do stuff. They didn't just ask big institutions to do stuff. They didn't just ask businesses to do stuff. They asked us to do stuff, people. They included what they call socio-cultural change and behavior change into their calculations, and they identified that lifestyle change, behaviors, what we do, can have an impact only if it is part of wider infrastructure and policy change. I'm going to repeat that again a couple of times over. We can make an impact, but only if governments and businesses have got our back. And if they don't have our back, we can't. So we are most definitely part of the solution, but that does not mean we hold equal responsibility for the problems. So I want to get that right out front at the beginning. We're here talking about lifestyle change, lifestyle solutions as part of a huge agenda of work that we're talking about in terms of infrastructure. And what they said is that actually, with all of that infrastructure, with all of that support, with all of that help, we, people, sociocultural change, could save 5% of demand-side carbon. Now, 5%, is that a lot? Is that little? This is a world-changing amount of carbon, a life-saving amount of carbon in terms of what it could actually do. And also, what they pointed out is it takes a long time to build a city. It can take a while to put up a wind turbine. You can decide to change what you do right now, today. So they use the word rapidly in terms of change. And the IPCC does not use the word rapidly very often. Not very much happens rapidly in the IPCC. By the way, now, there are a lot of people who are laughing in this have had many, many years of dealing with the IPCC. So that 5% is a really meaningful amount of change. Now, what they did is they went into it. They went into how sociocultural change happens. They went into the detail. And they even listed out those things which we need to do, these 61 behaviors. Really big, massive outcomes, huge, huge, huge change on there. You'll see things such as shift to smaller cars, smart metering, better thermal insulation. There's a load of terminology in there that you might not recognize. Now, when we sat down with BE Works and we said, BE Works, this is it. If we can get everybody who is a high consumer, which, by the way, is all of us and almost everybody watching, if everyone who is a high consumer could do these things, we could save the world. And we'll talk a little bit about the responsibilities of high consumers versus low consumers, over consumers versus under consumers. Under consumers need to be able to consume more, they need to consume more water, they need to consume more energy, they need to consume more food, they need to consume more life expectancy. Over consumers, we're the ones with the responsibility to change how we act. And we then went out and we asked people, like, do you want to do this? Does it sound okay? And what we found is that overall, when you ask people, when you list out these things of change and you say, will this make your life better? Will this make your life worse? Will eating a little bit less meat, a little more plants, will traveling a little bit differently, will this make you happier or sadder? And the vast majority of people, over 55%, said it will improve my lifestyle. And when we asked them, who do you want to help you with this? Whose help do you want? They said brands, which I think is really interesting. Like, I would have said governments. But as we know, in the climate community, we don't tend to be that representative of the rest of the population. And the rest of the population trusts brands, they like brands, they want brands to help them. Brands are in their bathroom, they're in their kitchen. Brands are in their life in a much more everyday, visible way than most governments or other people are. And so brands are who they trust to help them to make this change. Now, this is where we come to a problem. Because IPCC, we're like, yeah, but those aren't behaviors. I'm like, what? Like, that list of 60 things, they're not behaviors as behavioral economists would define them. They're outcomes. They're actually what happens after you've done the behaviours, like eating less meat, travelling differently. They're the calculable carbon footprints, and you can measure the carbon of all of these. But actually, each of them has got an antecedent behaviour. By the way, it took me such a long time to learn how to pronounce antecedent. Really, Naz would recommend we don't use that term too often on here because it's very hard to remember, antecedent. And actually, what we need to do is we need to find what those actual behaviours are that lead to those outcomes. And that's one of the things which with BE Works, Futerra has been working on over for a while. So we've gone through all of these 60 behavioural outcomes, looked at the carbon literature, gone through the behavioural literature and identified what comes first. What have we got to do before we get to those behavioural outcomes? What is the critical path to us being able to have these outcomes that are going to deliver this massive 5% of carbon? And it's a long, long, long list. And many of these things are relevant to some people in the world. Many of these things are relevant for other people in the world. One of the things I just want to put a couple of health warnings on, which is, you know, we've got to be really careful that when we're doing this kind of work, where we have these kind of conversations, we don't slip into greenwash, we don't slip into consumer blaming. We've got to be careful that actually, although we've listed out these behaviours, please don't just grab them and run with them and try to do them. It is really worth doing your proper research and actually being able to identify with your community you're working with the people you're working with, are these the right behaviours? You've got to be able to show that what you did, like the role that you did to try to help change these behaviours, you were the cause of it. That actually, if you're going to go out there and claim that you helped, you've got to show causation. And we've got to try to use this to deepen and impact our relationships. So, just going to go back one. Mapema, if you just go back one. So, this is the wheel. The wheel. The wheel is around the centre, these big outcomes, and around the outside, these antecedent behaviours. Now, they're obviously only a few small examples of the antecedent behaviours. We've picked between 3 and 4 for each. But for transportation, you can see, for example, if you want somebody to carpool or car share, that needs to be an outcome. An antecedent behaviour is that they subscribe to a car share service. An antecedent behaviour is that they download a car share app, that they book a car share. And then you can see there's antecedent behaviours for each of those, which they understand that they've been sold in. And that's when we start getting into the storytelling and the being able to encourage people to do this. So for each of these, for around transportation, around diet, if, for example, if you've got people eating out and ordering more climate-friendly food when they eat out, they've got to be able to research that. They've got to be able to understand which restaurants they've got to go to. They've got to have apps and information, and this is where Google comes in a really big way. Most of these antecedent behaviours are access to information about what you do in advance of actually having the outcome. It's the same for energy consumption. And just to really dig into this, and by the way, this is not yet public. You guys, this small group of people, and however many hundreds of thousands are online, are getting a sneaky peek of something which we're going to be launching properly at COP28 later this year, where we're going to make this available for everybody. This is not going to be a subscriber opportunity. We're going to give it out freely because there's a lot of folks around the world who really need this to understand what should we be doing, what should we be asking people to do in our sector, in our brand, what should we be helping to encourage. Now, just to give you a couple of, what do you do? So you've got these antecedent behaviours, you know what you're trying to get people to do. How do you encourage them to do it? Well, one, you find out why on earth aren't they doing it already? What are the barriers that they feel? The barrier might be, I don't know what to do. The barrier might be, I don't have access to do it. The barrier very often might be, I can't frigging afford it. The barrier might be, is this for me? The barrier might be self-identity. Is this the kind of thing that people like me do? Or in all of the publicity and all of the online and all of the social media posts I see, is it a different kind of person to me who does this? Like, you know, being an environmentalist, being an eco-warrior, like, do people really need to feel that they're that in order before to do the behaviours? And actually, is there a social proof? Is this something that I'm seeing lots of other people doing? So we've got to identify what the barriers are to each of these behaviours. And then what you can do is you can pull together a plan. So you've got, okay, Fuel efficient driving. This is one of the 60 outcomes in IPCC. They've put a big carbon number on it. We need to do it. Few antecedent behaviours, taking the shortest route. Okay, using eco-mode, using eco-friendly routing on Google. Notice I said routing there. Eco-friendly routing. It's really hard for Brit to say that. It's routing. Not speeding, avoiding driving at busy times, and actually a potential keystone behaviour that could lead to this is using your GPS. So that's where you realise that using your GPS is one of the things that can create these antecedent behaviours that can create this outcome. So you can see it's a lot of work, but there's a plot here. There is an overall plot that we can create. The 60 behaviours, the set of antecedent behaviours around it, what are the barriers that people focus on that, and then how can you and all the organisations in here, be you a product developer, be you a tech company, be you a communicator, be you a community leader, be you a creator online who people listen to, what can you do to help people overcome those barriers and actually be able to take an eco-friendly life? And if we do that rapidly, quickly, we can save 5% of demand-side carbon and save the world. So there you go. Thank you very much.
I love your energy. Okay, please, have a seat, have a seat. This is amazing. Thank you so much for this. So we're going to follow on with this and actually bring in some very special guests to the stage, okay? I feel very lucky to be able to talk to them. You should be feeling very lucky to be able to listen to them. So we'll start with Kate Brand. She's the Chief Sustainability Officer at Google. Please come on stage. We have Anthony Lazarowicz. He's a Yale program on climate change communication. Please come on. We have Irene Sikola. She is from Director of Energy and Buildings at C40. We'll explain exactly what C40 is. And then we have Douglas Sabo. He's the Chief Sustainability Officer at Visa. So, okay, I will stand because I want to say...
You don't want to fall off the stage.
No, guys, we're going to have a great conversation. There's a lot of people. Normally, panels are very boring and dull. We're going to do the opposite of that today, okay? So before we begin, guys, let's just do like a 1 or 2 sentence introduction as to what you do and how does it relate to sustainability, and say it in a way that my mother can understand. And she doesn't speak English. Do you want to start with that?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Wonderful to be here. Visa, as you hopefully know, global payments technology company. In the sustainability space, we are trying to enable sustainable living, sustainable lifestyle, sustainable commerce around the world. I'll talk about a little bit of how we're doing that, but it's in behaviors and transit and EV charging and sustainable travel and all sorts of good ways, and connecting your financial accounts and your payment accounts to the footprint that you have. So we'll come back to that.
Very cool.
Hi, very nice to be here. Nice to meet you all. I'm Irina, I come from C40 Cities. So what is C40 Cities? It's a global network of the 97 biggest cities in the world. So we work with our mayors to be able to introduce policies that hopefully will lead people to, let's say, more sustainable ways of living. So cities do policies, but the reason I'm here is to say how we can, with better information, introduce policies that speak to people and are I hear my voice, okay, that aim to improve their well-being.
So just to understand, you work with mayors to change entire cities, 94 cities around the world, and make them more sustainable.
Exactly.
Okay, that's
simpler
a big job.
words.
Very cool. Please.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Lazarowicz. I'm a faculty member at the Yale School of the Environment, where I direct the Yale program on climate change communication. We do 2 main things. One is we study people around the world and what do they understand about climate change, how are they engaging, how do we communicate to them. And then the second is we directly communicate with millions of people every day through our own climate news service called Yale Climate Connections, which includes a national radio program with a new story every single day on over 700 stations across the country.
Very cool.
Great to be here with you all. I'm Kate Brandt. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at Google, and very honored to be hosting Solutions House with Soli and Johan for a 2nd year in a row. I have the great honor of getting to work with colleagues across Google to think about three big things. The topic we're talking about today, how do we put information in the hands of individuals who want to live more sustainably? Also, how do we support our partners, be those businesses, policymakers, NGOs, with tools that accelerate their ability to take action on climate and also to adapt to the impacts of climate change? And then, of course, we think about our own footprint of our business, how we work towards a net zero by 2030 goal. So great to be here with you.
Amen.
And I'm Townsend of Futerra, and particularly working with our wonderful partners, BE Works. We help people live more sustainably and help brands help them.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, between the 5 of you guys, we can reach roughly 3 to 5 billion people in the world. Billions at Google, billions at Visa.
2.7 billion.
Oh, thank you. No big deal. Hundreds of millions in your 94 cities. You reach millions across social media, and you reach millions through your research. Yeah. So obviously, the 5 of you have a lot of impact. And I guess what I'd like to do today is I'd like to come up together as a conversation of like 5 things an individual can do that can make their lifestyle emissions go down, okay? Because I know you guys have done a lot of this work in your companies, and these 5 people can influence billions of people. So what is the 5 things that are most effective in influencing people to reduce their carbon emissions without feeling guilt? That's the main one. And this will be a conversation. It's not going to be one by one. So from your research, I mean, what have you discovered?
Number one, help consumers actually connect to their footprint. Because I think there's so much confusion about what is it that I'm doing, and I'm making these decisions, and I'm purchasing things, and I'm traveling, and I have no idea what this consumption is. So one thing that we tried to help do is we partnered with a great company called Ecolytic. We're going out to it. We don't go, consumers are not our direct customers. Banks are our customers, and then consumers are, you're a customer of a bank. So we're taking this solution out to banks around the world. They turn it on, and then you, as a consumer, you would start to see transaction by transaction an estimated footprint. So you got to start with even just awareness, connection, and then there's personalized education that comes with it. Like, here are some of your behaviors. It has a heavy footprint. Here are some things that you could explore. So let's just start with even helping consumers understand where their footprint even is.
So you're telling me if I open my mobile app, my banking app, I say I spent $10,000 last month, and then you can tell me which percentage of my spending was sustainable and which percentage was not sustainable.
You give an estimated emissions factor.
And is this live?
It is live with banks who have turned it on.
Cool. Do you guys like this? It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one idea.
Yeah.
What are other ideas that you have found?
I think you said you come from Israel. I come from Greece.
Uh-oh.
So Greece is the home of democracy, and I truly believe in democracy. And free choices. So for us, it's really important that everyone, including me, when I make my lifestyle choices, I base them on the right information, and that I feel confident that the city I live in, you know, the local governments are the level of government closest to the citizen, correct? That the government, the policies my local government chooses to implement are also based on solid data and information that address my needs. So for us, the main role of cities is being enablers and supporters for citizens to make the right choices. So my expertise on energy and buildings, correct? So when a building introduces a building code, a building code is the way a building is constructed. We heard about pacified houses earlier. So when a city introduces a building code, they does this on solid data to ensure that when you live in your house, it's really energy efficient and it's properly insulated, and you don't need to consume huge amount of energy for your day-to-day needs. However, at the end of the day, it's you on how you will use your energy system. So
why not just have a dictator mayor and just like
because we believe in democracy.
Oh, come on.
At the end of the day, it's your individual choices. It's our common responsibility. It's not a mayor that needs to dictate what you need to do. We need to provide you the information.
But is there any city that was successful at this? I understand what Visa is doing to make me reduce my carbon
I can tell you that.
What is the city that was successful at this?
I will tell you many examples, but 2/3 of our cities are cutting per capita emissions faster than the nation states. So they're doing something good.
What's the #1 city?
Oh, there is not. We don't do these comparisons.
That is the one thing we want to know.
Love solving children.
Pick your favorite child.
Got it. So things like building code.
Athens is equal to New York. Can you accept that? They're doing the same. They're being Athens. It's as successful as New York, to give two big examples.
And now you know. Thank you. So you've done a lot of research. It's your full-time job.
Yeah.
What have you discovered?
So I'm going to say something a little out of the box, which is to say that yes, of course, how we use energy, how we eat, what kinds of food we eat, how we move around the planet, all these things are really important. But all of us have a superpower. Every single individual has a superpower, and that is to talk about climate change with your friends and family. And even more importantly than just talking about it is serving as a role model for everyone else. Human beings are social animals. We pay very close attention to what other people do, what they say, and what they value. And I mean, everything that you do. Have you ever gone through the checkout line at a grocery store and looked at what the person in front of you or behind you is buying? Of course you have. We all do that. So you're not actually having a conversation with anybody, but believe me, when you're putting your things on that conveyor belt, they're looking at what you're buying too. And you are, in fact, role modeling for them what a sustainable diet looks like. When you drive, you are role modeling what it means to move around the world, and so on and so forth. So it's not just what you say to another individual, it's what you actually say to hundreds, thousands of other people around you through your behavior.
So should I just text all my friends now and tell them become sustainable?
Please, would you?
Followers.
Yes, right now.
Should do that.
Please.
And that's effective.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, especially for someone with millions of social media.
Yeah.
For that one.
The term influencer is actually we don't influence anything. The real influencers are you guys and the teachers and the doctors. We're creators.
Yeah.
It's a new word. It's a new word. But thank you for that.
You are a role model too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So, at Google, we're an information company, and people come to us every day seeking information on many topics. But increasingly, what we're seeing is people are coming to us with questions about how to live more sustainably, how to go solar, wanting information about EVs, around recycling. And so this gives us a tremendous opportunity to pair that interest with the science that Soli so beautifully walked us through. And we've also been thinking about where do we have natural opportunities based on that science. And we've really honed in on transportation and home energy as two places that people want that information. And the science tells us they have that ability to take action. So in transportation, you may have seen things like eco-friendly routing, which Soli mentioned to us. That's the little green leaf you may have seen show up in your Google Maps about 18 months ago. That shows you the most fuel-efficient route if it isn't already the fastest one. And we're even able, with that tool, to show you that's already reduced about 1.2 million metric tons of CO2e, like taking 250,000 cars off the road, just because people were taking that more fuel-efficient route. And of course, there's other features in Google Maps too. We can show you how to take a bike, where's the nearest bike share, how you can take public transit. So there's many really useful solutions that we're giving people in transportation. Also, when you look at your home energy, we know that people increasingly want to think about how they're powering their home. We have a tool called Project Sunroof, which shows you the solar potential of your rooftop, how much money you could save by going solar. And we're trying to bring in more features like this, information around heat pumps, what kind of tax incentives are available to you, same with EVs. So making it easy for people when they're coming to us for information.
Got it. So let me understand this right. So if I go to Google Maps and I want to go to Boston, it shows me 3 options, 1 sustainable route, 1 not sustainable, and 1 less sustainable. And then ideally, I would take the more sustainable route as a consumer. You do all the work for me as Google, basically.
We do all the work in the background, all powered by AI, to look at the gradient of roads, the traffic, the sequencing, and then we give you an easy choice.
And do you think this will be for the next, this is the future? Do you think this is what every other product will look like?
I mean, it will look different in different products, but this is where we really want to match what people are searching for with what we can give them in terms of helpful information.
Okay, Sally.
Right.
Just 1 second. You know point number 6 you put in this report out of the 90 recommendations. You know what it was? It said, no pets.
Yeah.
I have 12 cats.
Yeah.
So tell me exactly why I should not have any pets and what is the actual most effective way to reduce carbon emissions?
Okay, so on that one, it's okay, I got that one sorted for you. We've got a insect-based pet food company. So don't worry. One of the things about these, that's a perfect example of where actually we need infrastructure change, and we need product innovation, so we don't have to do that. I love pets. Like, I love pets slightly more than I love people. You'll have seen that you've got the in-house dog here in Futerra. So that's the worst case scenario if we don't do anything. If we actually change how pets are fed, we don't have to have that outcome. But I was going to tell you the science answer of the biggest things you can do in your lifestyle. But let me take that logic science hat off and put the magic story hat on. Because what we often forget to say is there's actually 3 things I need you to do. One is I need you to be healthier, sexier, thinner, and with better sleep by changing your diet to a more sustainable diet. Secondly, I need you to be calmer, more centered, have more time with your friends and family, be more connected to your community by basically traveling a little bit less and spending more time in your home and changing how you travel. And actually, you can have an amazing tight ass if you get on your bike. Thirdly, I need you to spend less money and have more money in your pocket for the things that you need by being much more efficient in your home about how you use things. And the reason why I say that is we're always telling people that these are the things which are going to save the world, and there's this massive secret that we never tell people, which is it's really fantastic for you. All of these things have these massive personal outcomes, which basically means if you're the kind of person who wants to do this to save the world, if that's what's going to give you your kick, do that. But otherwise, do it to be like, have better sleep, have a better body, have better friends, have less stress and more money.
That's very convincing. I gotta say, I want all of that.
Yeah.
So I should no longer fly business class then, because I should stay home and develop deep personal relationships
With
so
your
I can
neighbors.
save on carbon emissions. That's
There you
great,
go.
and bye-bye cats.
Yeah.
So that's it. Just to summarize all 5 suggestions, because each one was so different. Did you guys notice? One person tells you, become a social animal and tell your friends to be sustainable, and that's very impactful. The other person is telling you, actually Google Maps itself to all billions of people is gonna make you more sustainable in your transportation. Then your finances with Visa and your bank will tell you how to become more sustainable with your money. And then your city mayor will democratically tell you how to become more sustainable and not force you. And then she will psychologically tell you how to become more sustainable. So each one is doing it in a different way. And I really find that variety of changing your lifestyle, one of these is convincing, one is not, one is less, one is more, but either way, all are very effective. So I don't want to stop talking. I'm going to let you guys the chance to ask them any questions. Who wants to go first? Go.
I have a question about influence. I think a lot of you were talking about it. So Anthony, Doug, you were talking about not telling, but showing. And so I want to hear a little bit about how you're advising for that, maybe how your brands are, because that's what my podcast and my work is all about, climate influence. And I think that influence, not the talking, is the thing. There's so many opportunities. So whoever wants to chime in on that.
Well, I'll jump in there. So I don't think it's an either or. Talking is important. Even better is organizing with others to raise your voices to, let's talk really briefly about this. There's a debate within our community about should we be promoting individual change or system change. Okay, and the individuals say, look, I can only do what I can do, so I'm not going to worry about system change. And the system people say, screw that, that's not important enough, we got to change the whole planet. I think this is a ridiculous argument. It's not an either or, it's a both and. Because the systems people are right, we do need system change. But how do you get system change? Especially democratically. You need people to demand that change. And so I would just say one of the other things we can do to solve all of this is for citizens to raise their voice as citizens, not just as consumers, but as citizens to demand that their political leaders and their business leaders do more. Because what we see is in our studies that actually large majorities, not just in the United States, but around the world, are willing to reward or punish companies for their action or inaction or blocking of action on climate change. But the fundamental major constraint, I don't know which companies to reward or punish. That's an information limit. And that, if I was a corporate person, that would either make me salivate or my knees to shake. Because depending on where I am on that fault line, I'm either in a position to tell a great story about how I am empowering you as a consumer to help solve this problem, or I'm on the other side. And there I can be vulnerable to what environmentalists say, because I think environmentalists have great credibility at naming, blaming, and shaming. But who I'd really be afraid of is my competitors. Because they have the money and the motivation to say, actually, their product's not as good as mine, because I will empower you more to live out your values.
Interesting.
If I could just build on that briefly, that your point about influence and showing, not telling, is really, really important. We do need to tell. We've got to, like, people want to know, what am I going to do that's going to save the carbon? That please show me, but I don't want to bother if I don't know it's going to carry like a big win. But then the showing really matters. My younger sister, she lives a completely different life to me. She does not fly. She's completely zero waste. She's got chickens in her garden, the whole shebang. And she changed the nice green picket thing out the front of her house to a little market garden. And all her neighbours at the beginning were outraged because they had all of these. And then, of course, on a Saturday, they're out there with very grumpy husbands mowing the lawn, and she's picking the tomatoes, which then the neighbours want, etc. That was 3 years ago. Now it's all market gardens, and it's gone from competing over who's got the neatest grass to competing over who can grow the largest tomatoes. So it's still like sort of keeping up with the Joneses, but in an amazingly beautiful way. So every one of us, if you do what you do but do it publicly, you're going to encourage someone else to do it.
This is why corporate leaders who are vegan or ride their bikes or whatever can get louder. The policy, SB 253 in California, kind of the corporation, like there's so many amazing things forwarding this now, you guys. I'm just loving this.
Yeah. I think, can I just add
please go ahead.
just real quickly one other area, and I think it's about normalizing behavior and inspiring the behavior. And one area is like the re-commerce behaviors. This is the rental, reuse, refill, repair, redistribute, et cetera. And so we're actually involved in a lot of re-commerce work right now because it's a new way of commerce. And so, but one of the barriers is the stigma, that there's consumers who say like, oh, I secondhand, I'm buying used, like there's a stigma to that. So the more people can do it and then share it and demonstrate it, talk about it, I think it just removes that stigma, and that's just one behavior of so many that I think we need to tackle.
And just to acknowledge
Please.
This
you,
is such a good question.
just to acknowledge you know, I didn't mention YouTube, which is of course another platform at Google.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing to see influencers, to see creators like you, and increasingly so many more using your platform, using your voice to share your experience, to talk about how, you know, this isn't perfect, this is hard, but here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm learning.
Yeah.
That's so powerful, and I want to thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I get so many negative comments because of it. It's amazing. So I'm vegetarian, and every time I make a video about why I'm vegetarian, I get destroyed in the comments. In the Middle East, where I'm from, like, meat is amazing, you know? Yeah. So, but it is hard. It's actually not, on that note, it is not popular to be as sustainable as you think. It is not popular to be vegetarian. It is not popular to not buy the newest stuff from H&M and go like thrift storing. You have to do what's not popular to affect change. Anyway, let's do another question. Make it difficult and make it sensitive. Go.
About the democracy in the construction industry. We never had that. We have building rules. So the government can put up those building rules to make it happen passive houses, like they've done in some countries already. So it's just for all the other countries to just copy. Because the clients, they're not going to order passive houses because they don't know what it is. And the builders, they're not going to do it by themselves, except me. My slogan is, I build passive houses whether the clients wants it or not.
So I like
and
that.
This for 12 years.
So
no
this
one
is a
ever
case.
wanted it.
This is a case for dictatorship or enforcing the rules.
We have rules already in all democracies.
So the question is, will the world democratically choose to become more sustainable, or if we say it's illegal to like drive a diesel car from now on, and I just said it because I'm a dictatorship leader or whatever, and that's it? Yeah. Right? Should we just go the forcing people to become sustainable route, or are we going to wait for them to choose and?
There's a huge debate in our movement. There's quite a few like pro-dictator environmentalists, and the problem with it is that things which are enforced tend not to last. Okay. And as soon as the enforcement removes, you ping back. As many of us have seen post the pandemic, we all changed our lives. We thought that maybe those changes would stick, and actually many of them haven't. Whereas if people have got a reason to do so, if there's something in it for them, if there's something in it for me, like one of the things I've noticed about eco-friendly routing is it's really frustrating being stuck in traffic. And even if it takes you slightly longer to get there, but you're moving all the time in your car, it's much less stressful. So actually, I don't take the routes because they're eco-friendly. I take them because I don't end up shouting out of the window of the car at other drivers. And so rather than imposing, rather than powerful people, this needs to come through people power.
Okay, sorry, we're gonna have to disagree. I'm so sorry. No, what she said is right. She said every building code is enforced. You didn't democratically choose to like have this light here. Somebody forced you to do it, to have a fire code, building code. That exit sign is not something you chose to do, and it's effective to have that exit sign. So maybe it is effective to enforce some rules.
I wouldn't completely agree with that.
Good.
The reason for this is that I totally agree that policies that have been enforced, they're not successful. Because people can always find ways to bypass a policy. Definitely. So the more successful building codes that advocate for net zero carbon buildings, as we call them, are the ones that have been developed bottom up, involving the developers, involving the architects, involving the community. In a city that we work now, and it's a very recent example, that's why I will use it, in Quezon City in Philippines, that they're using the first city code in Southeast Asia. They started from scratch, involving the people that will live in the buildings, involving the developers, the civil engineers, the financiers. So convincing everyone that this is the long-term better solution. At the end, it was very, very easily implemented. It took time in the planning, but not in the implementation. People can always bypass legislation.
I love that. Okay, so I'm going to see what the people think, actually. Raise your hand if you think sustainable rules should be enforced. Okay, now raise your hand. Now raise your hand. Raise your hand if you think they should not be enforced and they should be, free flow and chosen by the people bottoms up.
I'm going to change the question. I'm going to say...
I wanted to manipulate the answer.
Who agrees that rules on businesses should be enforced? Versus who believes that we should force citizens to do things? So this is the big difference. When you're talking about rules on organizations, on businesses, you got to enforce them and you got to set them. But when you're talking democracy... I'm sorry, but businesses aren't democracy. People are democracy.
Exactly.
So it's about actually, in terms of lifestyle change, making sure we want to do it, and what we want businesses to do is enforced.
That's very interesting, actually. I actually am based in Dubai and Singapore, and I have seen the opposite of that, and I've seen it work, but it's interesting to be in the West and see a different opinion. Anyway, let's move on. Different topic. Go. Stand up.
I'm going to build on that question, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Stand up, stand up.
Hi.
I don't know if it's working, but I can speak loud enough. I'm Lauren, and this is awesome. I focus on building teams that are anchored around culture and values. So reflecting that back internally, if it's the business's responsibility, what do you think you as leaders can do to bring this through the business and not make it the sustainability's lead's responsibility, but everybody's responsibility? That's one of the things we're trying to work on with our clients, but it is really a perspective shift, that it's the accountant's responsibility and the marketing manager's responsibility, and of course, all of your responsibility as well.
So what's that question?
The question is, how can you as leaders ensure that it's a top, bottom, but throughout it's a systems change? But what are the things that I guess we all as people who work can bring these values into not just like our day-to-day lifestyle choices, but how we do those things at work?
At work. How do you become sustainable?
I mean, I think there's many probably options, but one is really be connected to the business. So we're leveraging our, the core superpowers of payments. I think one of the biggest ways that we are contributing is bringing tap to pay. Anyone take the subway today, anywhere recently? Have you tapped to pay instead of getting a fare card and all that? I mean, we're doing that, helping that happen in 600 cities around the world, over 1 billion transactions a year of people tapping. It was the #2 friction point for people taking public transit. So it's removing a friction. It's core to our business. It's good for business. It's good for planet. It's good for people. So that's how you embedded it. I'm just one small example of it, but it's like 50 transactions every second of people taking public transit all year round.
But what about also at work? Because you guys are responsible for tens of thousands of employees. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I would really build on what Doug was just saying. I think it is so important to think about what does this mean for your business. So I talked about at Google, we're an information company, we're an innovation company. We think about how do we embed sustainability in the core of our mission and think about it in terms of how we design products, how we design features, because people need them, because they're helpful, because they have a business outcome. So that's leadership from the top, but that's also then inspiring your employees and giving them that creativity. And that's something I love about working at Google. We set out this ambition where we said we want to help avoid a gigaton of carbon emissions by 2030. So now we have teams thinking about what's the potential contribution of the work that I'm doing, whether that's in Maps or in another part of the business. I think that's really powerful. And I think also, just to slightly bring us back to the last conversation, looking at the synergies, kind of what you were saying, Tony, between the role of the individual and the systems change. So we were talking about the panel around, we're showing individuals the carbon footprint of a flight so they can use that to help them with their decision making. We're also working on the other end with American Airlines and Breakthrough Energy on how do you use AI to reduce contrails, which are 35% of the emissions from aviation, so that the system change is happening while individuals are having their chance to influence too.
Okay, you didn't mention it, but I love earning my green leaves on my Google Nest.
Yes,
When
exactly
I turn
right.
my thermostat down a little bit. Yeah.
And you know, it's really important that the public and the private sector work together so that the most sustainable solutions are the default. So sometimes the choices you will make, you won't even understand them. And I will give you an example. There is a program that we have worked with Google on how you can, let's say, drive consumers, let's say, behavior in your house, how you use your heat pump or your solar panel, without you even knowing, that will reduce emissions from electricity. This is what we call carbon flexing, that you're using electricity throughout the day when the grid is cleaner, not when it is dirty, because you know renewables do not, let's say, wind is not blowing every day, sun is not shining, and so on. So even without you knowing, we can work the systems around so that you use the energy when it's cleaner. So it's about us working together with the private sector to provide solutions that you won't even need for you to make a choice. It will be just more cost efficient and more sustainable. Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
on that bombshell, thank you, everybody. I could talk to you for hours. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We're going to walk to the back. We're going to next.
Just to summarize, I feel like I learned a lot on, like, you know, some change will happen because it will just be in the background. Some change will happen because it's democratically, people chose to make it happen. Some will happen because somebody suggested it will happen. Some will happen because my friends said I should become more sustainable. And so there's like five roads that lead to Rome. It's not like all roads actually lead to Rome, which is a more sustainable future. Now, we talked a lot about individuals, what individuals have to do, and what I should do, and what you should do. But can I make money from this? That's really what I want to know. Can I make money from being more sustainable? Is there a business to be built here? Can you do good? Can you do well at the same time? And how do companies think about this? Can I build a product out of this? That's the question now we want to answer. And for this, I have another panel. But before that, I want to invite Johan to the stage. Johan Fall. There he is. Yes. I want you to give us a bit of a background on this whole thing. Nice to meet you. Johan is the CEO of Exponential Roadmap Initiative.
Thank you.
Please. That clicker?
Do we have a clicker somewhere? And I was a bit concerned with your first question, how I can explain Exponential Roadmap Initiative for your grandmother. That's really a difficult one, as far as I see it. But maybe I can use this picture. We bring together companies with the same mission to cut emissions by half by 2030, and doing that through solutions, which is a green, basically scaling up solutions exponentially. So that's basically the hockey stick curve. We need to go much faster than the traditional thinking. And before I go into and talk about the companies, I still want to stay a little bit on the individual perspective. In order to cut emissions, we need to do that by 2030, according to science. It's just a tremendous challenge because we're still going in the wrong direction, which is basically a crisis for humanity. We can only succeed, in our view, if we put the laser focus on scaling up the solutions and getting a desire for the solutions to shift out the old economy. That is what we see is the absolute essence. And the question, as you talked about before, where is the responsibility? Is it the governments? Is it the companies? Is it the consumers and the people? Well, the only way to succeed is that we get like a virtuous circle. So we get leaders in all these parts working together to actually accelerate this transformation. Now, in terms of consumption of the budget, we have about 5 years until we consumed now the budget for the 1.5 target. That's really, really scary. And we haven't really distributed that budget in a fair way. So it's about justice as well. So the 10%, is basically consuming 50% of the budget, whereas the rest consume the other 90%. To be part of that 10%, people think, well, it's just the super rich, but it's basically you have to earn something like $3,300 per month to be part of that group. So it's really about us. It's not just about the super rich. Maybe there are some super rich here. Maybe you are super rich. I don't know. Are you?
No. YouTube pays, but not that much.
Okay, anyhow. Okay, and then you can see also the tons per capita. We need to come down to 2 tons. We are in Europe at 10 tons, okay? Okay, so what we really need is, we need a planetary stewardship from the top 10% because we have the biggest responsibility. We can make the major impact, and it's not them, it's us, basically, okay? We can do that in 3 ways. We can shift our consumption. I don't think it's about lowering consumption. It's about shifting how we spend our money to better product, make them desirable, to green products. It's about shift finance, of course. If people just look what their pensions are used for, probably the pensions you have is used to actually accelerate the fossil industry, which is horrendous. It's very simple, actually, to look at how your fundings are used. And, of course, your influence and act at work, organizations, how you vote, of course. But going back to the first point, the consumption, we have a number of companies in our initiative working with carbon footprinting and consumers. So we can see that if you haven't done anything, it's quite easy to cut 50% just by shifting your consumption and improving your quality of life at the same time. Think about it, it's a tremendous opportunity, and in less than 5 years, because we're talking global about 10 years, that is an opportunity. Now, doesn't work. Now to the company's perspective. Well, the question is here, of course, how can we create a movement? Because we're probably a few percent of this top 10% today. And if we talk about the tipping point, let's assume it's around 10-15% of the top 10% who really need to make planet stewardship something desirable, something cool, and that others like to copy. I think that's a big challenge. How can we achieve that? So that's a question to us all. I think the companies, and I know you want me to come to that, yeah. Yes. Because that was part of the script. That is basically what I'm coming to. Companies have a big role because companies really influence what we desire as humans, what we are longing for, where we see the gaps. So how can companies do that? Well, of course, they can support their employees to shift towards sustainable lifestyles in a lot of different ways. So that's a really good thing. A lot of the companies in our organization are doing that. Second part, which is part of our framework, shift your portfolio towards climate solutions. Solutions which have substantially lower footprint and market them. But the third thing I think is most exciting, what we will talk with our companies here is about your communication and customer relation. How can you bring forward sustainable lifestyles and make them desirable in your communication and your connection with your customers? And how can you help your customers to reconnect to nature? There I think is a tremendous opportunity. I'll stop there.
You stop there?
Yeah.
Great, so let's begin. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Please have a seat. Okay, so in this panel, I probably have less of your questions and we'll probably have a lot more debating and disagreements, okay? Let's disagree the Israeli way. So coming on stage is Ashley Allen. She's the Chief Sustainability Officer at Oatly. Does anybody know Oatly? Yeah. Pretty big. Welcome, Ashley. Then we have Glyn Richards, who's also Group Sustainability Director at Bupa. Bupa. Nice to meet you. And then we have Eva Carlson. She's the CEO of Houdini. Welcome.
There.
Nice to meet
And
you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about companies. For those that don't know, so Oatly is a food company. Houdini is a clothing company. Bupa is an insurance company. Okay, so different sectors entirely. And before we begin, guys, please give us a 2-second introduction of who you are, what you do, and how does this relate to sustainability?
So I'm Eva. I'm the CEO of Houdini Sportswear, a Swedish outdoor brand. And I guess what I've been doing for a little more than 2 decades is reimagining what business can be. Within the apparel sector, of course, but there's a lot of things that are similar in other industries. Questioning conventions, doing things differently.
Are you profitable?
Yes.
Nice. Next.
Hi everyone, so my name's Glyn, I'm the Director of Sustainability at Bupa. Bupa is actually a healthcare company, but we do health insurance, we do health provision, we do aged care. Internationally, we have about 43 million customers, 82,000 staff. We're on a mission to convert healthcare to a more sustainable footing. So focusing on prevention, looking at the ways you access healthcare, thinking about the things that happen when you're in a healthcare setting, for example. So that's what we do.
And are you profitable?
We are.
Nice. I'm not used to this. I hang out with too many technology companies. This is really cool. It's shocking. Okay, next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley. And Oatly's entire mission is actually fits super well with this conversation because we want to help people live healthier lives without recklessly taxing the planet's resources. So what does that mean? That means eating things that actually are better for them, but also better for the planet.
And are you profitable?
No.
Not yet.
Oh, we have been.
Not
yet. Not yet. When we pay off our factories, we will be.
You will be soon. And so you're from Sweden, so are you against profit?
I'm pro-profit.
You're pro-profit?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we, sorry for that question. How do we, like, first of all, why, all of you guys, why build a company and why direct it towards sustainability? Because according to Adam Smith, the only thing that matters is profit, and the invisible hand, and shareholder value maximization. That's the only thing that matters in corporate America. Why build a different kind of company? Who wants to go?
I can say one thing, and it's kind of irritating, I think, that profit, it's a very narrow way of looking at how to contribute to life. So value creation is much more broad and holistic. And of course, money is one part of it, but a very small sliver of the entirety. Happiness, for instance, is pretty important stuff.
Okay, it's great. I love the claps. I can't pay my employees with happiness. I still need to make profit. Do you think a product that's sustainable can generate more revenue than a product that's not sustainable?
Yes, if you do it right, if you're smart with your design, not only product design, but business models, how you relate and engage with your customers, for sure.
Okay.
Look, profit without purpose is meaningless, but purpose without profit is unsustainable. So that's how we look at it, right? Because profit brings you freedom as a company to be able to make a bigger difference. You have to have that purpose in the first place to actually want to do something to change the world.
Yeah.
Wow. Wait, she said, profit without purpose is meaningless.
Meaningless.
And purpose without profit is unsustainable. Great.
It's from our CEO. I didn't make it up. I was
So firstly, I think you should come and work for Bupa. Secondly, we're a company we're a profit-focused company, but we don't have shareholders.
You don't have
No, we don't have shareholders. So we are very purpose-driven, and our purpose is to help people live longer, healthier, happier lives and make a better world. We've been looking after people's health for over 75 years now, and I think we've realized that you can't continue to do that for another 75 plus years unless you're actually looking after the things that, are drivers of people's health, which is the environment, the places we live, the places we work. And so it's impossible for us to sort of be a healthcare company without also looking at the impact of healthcare delivery on the environment. And so when we look at profit going forward into those 75 years, you have to say, well, actually, the only way we can be financially sustainable is by being more environmentally sustainable now, planning for the future. And within that, there are really clear commercial opportunities that allow us to shift the way we deliver healthcare to customers to a much more kind of preventative footing. And within that, there's some great profit opportunities. And I think that's exactly where we're focusing our business.
Interesting. And what are your thoughts on profit?
Profit is, as you said, it's an enabler for growth. So if we think about these climate solutions, we need profit to be able to scale them up. So I think it's a necessity from that perspective. But I don't believe that that any company is not purpose-driven will be successful over time. You need to be purpose-driven, but you also need to have a profitable operation in order to grow, so you can reinvest your profits, and you can share that between your different stakeholders. And the stakeholders is not only your owners, you know, it's every party in the value chain, you know, even the one who's working with the stuff. And you need to think about how you distribute that value between all the people contributing to that product. That's a new way of thinking, but I believe in it.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm somebody sitting in the audience right now, and I want to start a company. And it seems like everything we know about the future is going to change. The way we eat is going to change. The way we make meat is going to change. The way we eat milk is probably going to disappear. The way we dress is going to change. The way we insure ourselves is going to change. The way we travel is going to change. What are the opportunities for companies, maybe your company or other companies or industries, that for the next 20 years to really create massive impact as a company in a sustainable way? Like, what company should they build right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you try to look at it as what things are people doing in a way that they shouldn't be doing, and therefore what way would be better, and then investing in that thing that makes the change easy. So Oatly's entire business plan, is how can we make plant-based products that actually look and taste and feel at least the same, but probably better than the dairy alternative. And that's what it really comes down to when you're trying to scale change, is how can you make it easy for people? I loved the conversation before, and how do you sort of normalize that behavior? And so if we all start thinking more about what's the thing that's happening that shouldn't be happening, and what should we be doing instead, to me, that's where the business investment should be.
I agree completely. I think if you're starting a business right now, I think it's looking at the opportunities when you see businesses who are already up and running and doing what they do. Is there an opportunity to help them get to a better place? You know, and I think with sustainability, we have to collaborate. And you know, one of the things we've learned in our journey, which is one frankly that we've only really recently made some proper inroads on in the last couple of years, is the power of collaboration across a whole variety of people. You know, we partner with big tech companies, we partner with our healthcare providers, but we also partner with small startups. You know, and I think that's the opportunity. There's some amazing examples in our business. There are people who have come up with solutions that we didn't think we had problems for, that needed solutions. They've come to us and said, oh, this is an opportunity, and we say, actually, this is fantastic. And being able to kind of demonstrate the scalability of that in an organization like Bupa means that if you can do it with us, you can do it with anyone. You know, we're a big organization. We have all the usual challenges of being slightly slow, slightly bureaucratic. You know, but if you can partner with an organization that's up and running and solve for their challenges, you know, the world's your oyster. I think it's amazing, sort of the opportunity that's in front of you.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to ask a question I was supposed not to ask. But I'll tell you a personal story. One of my friends started a food company, and the food company basically goes and says, healthy, full of protein, and it's really good for you, and it's sustainable, right? Like big on the packaging, right on the top of the packaging. And then I just did the sin, and I looked at the nutrition, you know, the back of the product, and it has like 2% protein, it has like 20% fats, and it's obviously, for anybody that understands nutrition, it's obviously not good for your health, and probably not good for the planet with that plastic wrapper, right? But on the front of the cover, it says it's sustainable. So I guess this is what the term is called, greenwashing. You know, so I guess the question is, what makes a product sustainable? What makes a jacket sustainable? What makes oat milk sustainable? Yeah. What makes insurance sustainable, right? And I'm sure you have to ask this question to a lot of these companies. Mm-hmm. How can we make sure it's not just like greenwashing, as my friend is doing? Sorry, you'll never know him, so I'll never say the name. And how can we actually be, what are your thoughts?
Well, a product can either be working like with nature, materials can tap into the natural system. An organization can be part of the natural metabolism of the living world. But if we do it the way we've done for quite some time now, it's working against nature. And it won't become sustainable ever if we do that. But there's there's this amazing natural system that is super complex, perfectly functioning, and it's been innovating for 4 billion years. So learning things from that system and mimicking that, or actually working together with it.
So copying nature.
Copying, but also not only looking at that as a resource for knowledge and then, going ahead without.
So what makes your jacket sustainable?
Okay, so one jacket made out of natural materials.
Yes.
Pure throughout the entire production, amazing, so it lasts for a long, long time. But at the end of the day, you could be buried with it, in it. And it will all partner up with the microbes in the soil. So that's working with nature. It's not creating waste. It's part of the natural system. It's not only mimicking.
So it just disintegrates in nature. It becomes soil.
And creates nutrients there. For soil to be nutrient-rich, for us to grow vegetables.
Who here wants to buy that? I want to buy that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so what makes milk or oat milk?
Well, I have an addition to that because, and maybe it's just that, the jacket is amazing, but I think it also has to accomplish its function, right? It has to actually keep you warm or dry or whatever the thing is. Keep you covered, keep you not naked, whatever it is. And that's the same with food. And if it doesn't have a similar nutrition profile, if it's not delivering you some nutrition that you need, then how can you say that that's sustainable? So I think it is about nature. It is about the planet. You have to have the data and do the measurements. We do a full life cycle analysis of our products and measure 9 environmental indicators and then publish that and show. And some things it's much, much better than cow's milk, like 50 to 75% lower carbon footprint. And other things, it's not as big of a gap, right? Like things like mineral resources and things like that. So you have to really show the full picture, but you also have to achieve the function.
Yes. Can I add something? Yeah, exactly. That's really true. But when you create a product, you also, the opportunity, I think, lies in not only creating this perfectly functioning and perfectly collaborating with the natural world, but also something that you fall in love with and stay in love with.
Yes.
I mean, that emotional aspect can
product has to be good.
Something we don't bring up into focus when we talk about innovation. But innovation is a lot about the human aspects and
So let's talk about healthcare and insurance. Like, I mean, I just give you money and just give me money. That's all the relationship is. Why does it have to be sustainable?
So, I mean, healthcare, right? So healthcare, the whole purpose of healthcare is to keep people healthy, right? At the same time, the way we currently deliver healthcare globally is actually contributing to climate change quite significantly. Like 5% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from healthcare. So you have this kind of slightly perverse situation.
Like hospitals or what?
Hospitals, pharma, transport, everything that's connected with it. But I think you have this slightly perverse situation where an industry that's designed to keep people healthy may actually be contributing to things that make them unhealthy. And so when you look forward to a net zero future, you're always going to need healthcare. Everyone's going to need healthcare. So you have to find a solution in that net zero future and understand what that healthcare delivery looks like. Now, we're not there yet. We're on this journey. But I think we understand that we have to be part of the solution. And so we're looking at the ways that we decarbonize our business, introduce circularity, and then also think about how you introduce this intersection of human health and the health of the planet. How is nature showing up? There are powerful connections between human health and immersion in nature. There are powerful connections with human health and the key ecosystems within our organization. So, in our environment. So forests, oceans, all of these things, they are incredibly powerful. So at Bupa, what we've tried to do is say, okay, well, there's this clear focus we need to decarbonize and do the stuff we need to do within our operations to become more sustainable as quickly as we can. But at the same time, to encourage people who use our products, our customers, to make behavior changes in the way that they live their lives, encourage them, empower them to make the decisions themselves, and illustrate both the connection between the way that they access healthcare and the carbon footprint, for example, or looking at the ways that they live their lives, the levels of activity, how they engage with their natural environment, which might be an urban environment like New York, or it might be a forest environment. And say, well, actually, these behaviors that you can start to do are good for your health, but they're also good for the health of the planet. And making that connection super clear.
Interesting. Jonah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, to be a little bit technical, to be considered a solution, and we have another session on that later today. as far as we see it, you should at least, what we say, cut, at least 50%, preferably 90%, something like that.
Of what?
Of the business as usual, that you actually...
You want to cut 90% of business as usual. That's called recession.
For example, no, it's not recession. We had a company before here called H2 Green Steel. They will now produce steel which cut out 95% from the beginning. That's pretty radical. Of the carbon emissions.
Cut 90% of emissions, got it.
What did I
Not
say?
output, okay. That's actually Great Depression. Okay, it's cut 90%, 50% of output.
Exactly, but then you need to look at the product over the complete life cycle. So it's really about bringing back value to products that you really appreciate the product. You keep it, you resell it, and the life of the product is incredibly important. And then that we move away from using virgin material, we need to go completely circular over time for fashion and all type of products, So it's all part of that, but there will be different levels of sustainable products. In terms of claims, there will be much harder legal requirements in terms of claims. But so I think greenwashing is quite attacked, and rightly. But there is a risk for greenwashing, that companies doesn't like to talk about the products, which we need to avoid as well. I think it's really about honesty in communication. Be really clear on what you're doing, what you have done, what is your mission, what is your weaknesses that you often talk about. I was really impressed when you started your presentation and said, well, we are really unsustainable. I think you said that, which is really impressive because you're doing some of the best things.
Okay,
so the honesty.
Let's see if the audience actually buys this stuff. Like, raise your raise your hand if you're willing to pay more money for a product that's sustainable when there's an identical product that's not sustainable and equally as good. This is not a representative sample of that was a mistake asking them. Actually, the real world is not willing to pay $1 extra for sustainable.
I would challenge.
Do you agree or disagree? Let's debate.
I disagree with that because I think okay, right now, yes, but there is clearly an investment that needs to be made to shift into that more sustainable footing, right? I'm talking from a healthcare perspective. But imagine a world where you have healthcare that is delivered earlier and is much more targeted, personalized to you to some degree, and is focused on prevention. It is, as an insurer, you see the cost of healthcare delivery. Right, it comes through as claims on the policy.
Yeah, that I'm willing to pay for because it's my own health. I get it. But if it goes and plants one tree, I'm not willing to pay.
But you can do both, is my point. Because I think you can get to a place where, and we're not there, right? But you can get to a place where you are thinking about preventative medicine, which actually means that you don't then have to, as a customer, you don't have to access the more invasive, more carbon intensive, more hospital kind of time getting some treatment because you've made those preventative changes early.
Makes sense.
And we can charge you for that, but at the same time, it's cheaper to you because you have more time.
Eventually, it's cheaper.
Yeah, exactly right.
Now, is your jacket more expensive or less expensive than a jacket that I cannot die with?
It's more expensive.
It's more expensive.
Yes.
Okay.
But I think that the trick is to not only create a sustainable product that is equal in performance or beauty or whatever, but rather a superior product.
Yeah.
Because I don't.
And that's why you charge more.
I don't. Well, it's more expensive actually to do it the right thing, the right way. That's due to financial systems and everything else being not the way they need to be designed. But that's going to happen, I'm sure, as well.
I love that. Okay, so the product itself is actually more superior.
Yeah, I think that needs to be our ambition. And when you go into an innovation process, try to find a solution to one problem. You can clearly, that's happening all the time at Houdini at least, that we work in a different way. Innovation processes delivers 2 or 3 solutions that were not intended from the start. So you get a superior product.
Okay.
And it also depends on your comparison point, right? So for Oatly, Oatly's like a premium product. So if you compare us to other plant-based milks, or if you compare us to, for example, like organic cow's milk or lactose-free cow's milk, because we're lactose-free, right? That's the sort of group that would want to buy something that's not just the cheapest thing they could get. They're looking for an additional value, an additional benefit, and that's what they're willing to pay for.
So the main message is not buy this product, it will save the world. It's more like buy this product because it is actually better.
Yeah. Except for to this group. Then it's because it will save the world.
It's only me. Okay, guys, we could talk for hours. I will take one question from the scale guy because you seem very excited. Scale guy, stand up. You will have the last question.
So your original question is not what you should have been asking.
You're right.
You ask what organization should people build, and your whole life is networks. Your life has nothing to do with organization.
I have 115 people.
And
Excuse
most
me.
of the complex problems these people are working on are network solved, not organization solved. There's a half dozen social enterprises. Healthcare Care Without Harm is the best known in the healthcare space. They all operate as networks. None of them look anything like a normal organization. That will be true in every solution that you solve. This is a city that's already told us that there are certain problems that cannot be solved without the government passing Local Law 97 and forcing the real estate industry to decarbonize. What happened when they passed it? We didn't organize networks to support that. And so the mayor just had to push it back 2 years because there's no equivalent of healthcare without harm working on the building decarbonization. Because there are some, but they're not strong enough. They haven't been around long enough. They're not operating as networks. So I would just suggest that you want to build networks, not startups.
Absolutely.
And you want to use them to solve complex problems
I
at
agree.
scale.
Completely. I think networks include startups, but they are not limited to startups. I think it's a really valid point. I think we have. I think when we first started on this journey, we recognized that there's no way that we could do this on our own. And I think this is shared by everybody here. So, you've got to build the network. You've got to collaborate. You've got to find people who are with the same outcomes. So Gary Cohen at Healthcare Without Harm, a great example. And we work with the Sustainable Healthcare Coalition. We work with a Climate and Health Coalition, which is a coalition we helped co-found. And I think we recognize that these guys have done some of this stuff before, so they're we're learning from them. But at the same time, so you don't have to repeat the same mistakes. And at the same time, hopefully, we're teaching them something too, so that they can share that with their networks.
Awesome.
And that means you have collaboration as a foundation, and there's some competition on top, as a spice on top, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's a radical different way of working, I think, compared to competing as the foundation.
On that bombshell, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. And you can stay up. You can get on stage. Okay, we're going to wrap it up with Johan, stay on stage. Kate, please come on stage. And Sally, please come on stage. Final thoughts, summarizing thoughts. What do you guys think to the audience?
Okay, so first of all, I need to give you a really big thank you. Often when we have these big technical conversations about lifestyle emissions and avoided emissions, it gets really separated from what actual people live and talk and think about.
I am actual people.
You are actual people. You are not a climate geekoid, which is what I consider myself to be. And so thank you so very much for asking the questions that actually people who we're talking about would have those conversations. Secondly, I would just say, I think there's a big theme that's come out around the fact that sustainable lifestyles are better lifestyles. That this is better products, this is a better way to live, that this is healthier, happier, better sleep, better sex, better time. Slip that in.
We didn't talk about better sex.
Yeah. Well, come on. If you're less stressed, if you're getting better sleep, if you're healthier, then there's knock-on benefits. So I think that's one of the things that whenever we're talking about sustainable lifestyles, as I said at the beginning, it's this big secret that we forget to say is don't do it for the carbon, do it for you. Because that's what businesses need to be telling us, and that's what we need to be telling each other, is be intensely selfish about being sustainable.
I love that. Kate, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very well said. I think making the sustainable choice the better choice is a clear outcome of this. And I also really appreciated that we were looking at that next to the science, and also the insight that you shared that, and when people think about who do they want to help them, it's the brands. and the flywheel. I really appreciated what Tony said earlier about these two concepts are not against one another. It's not systems change or individual action. It's actually both. It's a tremendous flywheel, and it's how do we do both, and how do we accelerate action more together, and again, towards this better world, for this abundant world that the sustainable choices are a part of. So really good discussion, and thank you again for making it very interactive, very engaging, not just for the climate geeks like us.
I think it's all about, to just to agree with you, to make it really truly desirable to live sustainable and to shift your consumption. That it's cool, and it create the role models and inspire others. And it's we, the 10%. Yeah, we have the possibility to do it, to go in the front line. We need to influence others around us and try to get a movement, and the companies as well. I mean, really promoting good sustainable lifestyles, reconnecting with nature. That is such an incredible opportunity. So these two combined.
So have we convinced you?
Well, you convinced me with the selfish part, yes. With the selfish part, you convinced me because I'm more selfish in the sense that I would like to make my life better. And if it means to be sustainable, then it's great. Now, to summarize this, I asked ChatGPT. So English is my third language, okay? So I actually don't understand what sustainability as a word means. We talk about it, sustainability, green, da-da-da-da-da. What is sustainability? And I asked ChatGPT, what is the simplest definition of sustainability in one sentence? Gave me something I didn't like. I said, say it in a way a kid understands. And then I said, say it in an inspiring way. And then this is the last sentence that a kid would understand, that is inspiring, that defines sustainability. Taking care of our earth so it can take care of us, now and always. That's sustainability. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time.